finding opportunities in everyday encounters, an agile approach to dealing with life's unpredictability. Hi, I'm Kevin Brown. This is a very common name, which is really a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in that no one ever misspells my name and no one ever asks me how to spell it. It's a curse because everywhere I go, I meet another Kevin Brown. Back in high school in Jamaica, when I tutored the younger students, there was a student in my group named Kevin Brown. In undergrad, there was another Kevin Brown in my graduating year. Even when I went for an internship in California, there was another Kevin Brown at the lab. And I come to Argonne, and there is another Kevin A. Brown here as well. And to this day, we still get each other's emails. So whenever I give an introduction or make a presentation, I try to use all the qualifiers I can to clear up any confusion about which Kevin Brown I am. So I'm Kevin A. Brown from the Leadership Computing Facility at Argonne National Lab. About 8 years ago, this Kevin Brown left Jamaica to start graduate school in Japan. The first time I went to a barber in Tokyo, I couldn't speak Japanese and he could not speak English. And to make matters worse, I was probably the first black client he's ever had because he didn't seem to know how to groom my hair. So this is the haircut I came away with. I didn't know until after the fact that he doesn't do beards and he doesn't do hairline. So I inadvertently got the Mr. T look. My current haircut is almost the opposite of that first haircut in Japan. This is the first haircut I've had since the pandemic started. My hair has never been this long before, so I've never had this style before. I had a video chat with a friend as soon as I got back from the barber, and she started laughing, cracking up when the camera came on, saying that I look like her paintbrush. She's a painter. And honestly, I can't really disagree. Another friend was also laughing, saying that I don't look like someone with a PhD. But you know that I do have a PhD, right? In supercomputing. So I hope this is one of your takeaways from this talk, that you too can get a PhD in supercomputing or whatever you're studying. It doesn't matter what you look like, whether you look like Mr. T or you look like a paintbrush. But today, I want to talk to you about something else. I want to talk about how opportunities can be found in unexpected places, and sometimes when the conventional, the traditional, or the typical channels are not available to us, these opportunities are really our only choice. Consider this. How does a young man go from a small third world country without any traditional research opportunities to apply for graduate school in Japan to study supercomputing? In the left picture, I'm in my final year of high school, while in the right picture, I'm in front of the K computer, Japan's fastest supercomputer when I started grad school. 20 years ago, I was in high school in Jamaica with no idea about Argonne nor the steps I would take to end up in this position. The technologies I'm working on today didn't even exist back then. I was living with my mother in a single room apartment, not a single bedroom apartment, nor would I be generous enough to call it a studio apartment. No, 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 no. This was a small bedroom that was converted into an apartment. And you should understand, Jamaica is a small country of just 3 million people, and I didn't have opportunities to discover supercomputing through an internship at a big lab like Argonne. We didn't have those. We didn't have any advanced computing research being done at our university. We didn't have guest speakers to come and tell us about their journey to the field. Essentially, I didn't have the opportunities to be introduced to supercomputing in traditional ways like internship or undergrad research projects. None of that. Here's how it happened. This journey started when I joined the yearbook committee in high school, not the technology club, although I was a member of that as well, but the yearbook committee was the first in a line of unexpected opportunities that led me to supercomputing. Here I am in a committee meeting. See how sharply we're dressed in our school uniforms? Preparing the yearbook was a really fun project. I was hanging out with my friends, reminiscing about high school life. I was not there to study computer science. But something else happened along the way. I learned about typesetting and publishing. This is the formatting and layout of printed documents. Mind you, I had no intentions of working in publishing, and I still don't. But there I was, learning about how to use fonts to enhance designs, how to bleed illustrations so they extend over the page border and there's no white borders on the pages, how to position the main content on pages. After getting a greater understanding of print design, I started being more and more interested in how newspapers, magazines, basically all forms of print publications are formatted. But we still haven't arrived at supercomputing yet. Fast forward a few years later to undergrad at the University of Technology, Jamaica. I got introduced to the communications of the ACM magazine. ACM is the Association for Computing Machinery, the computing research community. I didn't have any advanced computing background, so I couldn't understand most of the technical details in the articles. But guess what? I found the typesetting and the page design to be so cool. Tell me, when you look at this cover, don't you just want to flip to the page about green AI? I mean, it's not Picasso's Starry Night or anything, but when I look at it, I'm just thinking how inventive the designers were. So I continued flipping through every monthly issue, throughout undergrad, and even after I graduated and started working at a company. Little by little, I came to understand more of the technical details. I was enjoying the magazine so much, I even started sharing it with my tech enthusiastic coworkers. And then, one day, we finally arrived at supercomputing. That day in question, I was flipping through the magazine on the bus to work. I came across this article titled Using Simple Abstraction to Reinvent Computing for Parallelism. It discussed simpler ways of doing parallel processing, the foundation of supercomputing. I liked it. It was interesting and proposed some creative ways to solve big, meaningful problems. And as you've likely experienced, once you really notice something, you start seeing it everywhere. So I started noticing more and more supercomputing related articles. And of course, I got more and more interested. And then, when it felt like it was time for me to apply to grad school, when I felt ready to move to the next stage of my career, there was no other topic in the world that I wanted to study. At that point, I still didn't have an idea of where to study or how to pay for it. One day I was having lunch with some friends, just a regular lunch like the one shown here. I don't have the picture of that exact lunch because this was back in 2012, in the pre selfie era, back when pictures were mostly taken with these handheld devices called cameras that were not attached to a phone. The lunch I'm talking about was just a routine, maybe weekly lunch. We met up and shared stories about what we did, what we watched over the weekend, complained about work, and any other random topic that was floating in the air at that time. The usual. So I said in passing, you know, I think I'm ready to apply for grad school. I just need to find a where and a how. I wasn't expecting anything from the conversation. This was just chit chatting. Sometime after that, one of my friends was moving to Japan to teach English. We call him Baba. Baba was cool. While at the Japanese embassy doing some paperwork, he heard about a scholarship for graduate programs at Japanese universities, and he remembered that I was interested in something like that. So he sent me the info. Now, going to Japan was never something I considered. Not that I was against it or anything like that. It's just that the thought never crossed my mind. I applied for the scholarship and created a very basic research plan. A research plan which still causes me to cringe nowadays when I look back at it. But I went through the interviews and I got the scholarship and the grad school admission. I'm pretty sure my professor was looking more at my potential as a grad student instead of the quality of my research plan. Otherwise, I would not have been accepted. 6 months later, I was in the Tokyo Institute of Technology, and 3 months after that, I was searching for a barber. This is a picture of me in Tokyo with my friend Baba, who told me about the scholarship, along with another mutual Jamaican friend, taken towards the end of my first year in Japan. I've wanted to do my PhD since I was an undergraduate student because that's when I decided that I wanted to be a university lecturer. The thought of becoming an expert in something other than watching movies sounded cool. I didn't have a topic in mind, just a general direction: computing. The opportunities that led me to study supercomputing and to Tokyo didn't come along an expected path. These opportunities started to manifest before undergraduate, when I was exploring a yearbook committee completely unrelated to computer science. I developed and expressed an interest in typesetting and publishing, which unexpectedly introduced me to parallel processing, the foundation of supercomputing. And it was a typical encounter with friends, which made me aware of the scholarship so I could take a chance and apply to the supercomputing research program even though I had no research nor academic experience in the area, besides reading a few articles. This is the type of approach to dealing with life's unpredictability that I want us to discuss. But you may be wondering why I found supercomputing so appealing. So I'll pause here to tell you why it was so attractive to me and why it still is. And no, this is not a picture of my supercomputer. This is the Theta supercomputer, currently our fastest system at Argonne. Each of these cabinets is bigger than your refrigerator. Theta alone has 24 of them. Supercomputers are the most powerful computers in the world. To put that in perspective, you've probably heard the term kilobytes or gigahertz before, used with your personal devices. Theta falls into the range of what we call the petascale, and systems in this range can be up to 1,000 times faster than your laptop. In fact, Theta is actually 10,000 times faster than my laptop. And as a researcher, we're always looking to the future and life beyond petascale. Our upcoming system, Aurora, will be one of the first exascale systems in the world, and it will have over 200 cabinets compared to Theta's 24. Isn't that just majestic? Supercomputers are used to solve some of the world's biggest, most difficult problems across all fields of science and technology, from designing more energy efficient engines for airplanes to designing the batteries that will power the electric cars of tomorrow, from researching COVID-19 treatments to researching the cure for cancer, from investigating the interactions of molecules at the nanoscale to investigating the origins of the universe. I could go on and on about all the awesomeness of supercomputers, but Argonne has scientists who are a lot smarter than I am. So let's listen to them tell us about the impact and future of supercomputing.
Almost every aspect of modern life is somehow tied to computing. So if we want to make better decisions, if we want to have more detailed understanding of the world, we need faster computers. And exascale is just the current next goal for computing.
So Aurora is going to be one of those things that pushes the boundaries of scientific discovery beyond what we see today. But the path to exascale did not start today. It did not even start with just the start of the Aurora project, but it started way back with all the expertise that we have in-house, that we have built over the years.
You know, one could say that Argonne has been defining the path to exascale for the last 35 years. That's when Argonne started looking very closely at parallel computing and, in fact, decided to focus on that as the way of the future.
In that history, Argonne's software is on most major large-scale computers. It's in most major codes. And I think that makes us stronger as we go forward as a user facility.
Clearly, we have our work cut out for us. Other countries are also putting in their effort to get themselves to exascale, and this is going to be really important for us as a nation to establish our technological leadership.
Exascale is not just a big computer to ask esoteric science questions. In the end, the problems that we're trying to tackle with exascale are ones that impact everyone, that impact you in your daily life.
Modern economies are based on information technology and applying science and engineering to pretty much everything that we do. And science and engineering has become very much coupled to computing. So the most capable computing that helps you have the most capable science and engineering, and the most capable science and engineering gives you the best technology, which gives you, economic well-being and prosperity for the country.
So you've just had a small taste of what supercomputers can do. How they do it is just as interesting. And this is where I do work every day, making supercomputers work, and work faster. Yes, you heard right. I'm making the fastest computers in the world even faster. Each cabinet has tens of smaller computers that are connected using a very fast network. So the entire system is actually built using thousands of smaller computers. We take a single big problem, like trying to understand the cosmos, and split it into smaller parts and have each of these small computers work on them in parallel. If the city of Chicago is a supercomputer, each building would be a single computer working to solve a part of the problem, and the roads would be the network moving data between the computers. The vehicular traffic congestion that we experience on road networks are just like the data traffic congestion we experience on supercomputer networks. That's why, in my role at Argonne, I'm designing things like digital traffic lanes and digital traffic lights on supercomputer networks, so that important traffic doesn't get slowed down by other traffic. If you had this on your network at home, your important conference call would never be affected by someone streaming Netflix in the other room. And when we have them on supercomputers, it means we can make sure that applications that are finding treatments for COVID-19 are never slowed down by traffic from other applications on the network. My work is ensuring that we can move faster to scientific breakthroughs and solving big problems. And I must say, it feels very rewarding. If we were to compare supercomputing to space exploration, my team at Argonne would be the ones building the rockets, while other scientists are using it to explore new frontiers and make giant leaps for mankind. So my career has brought me to the point where I'm essentially helping to answer the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything using supercomputers. And even though I did not plan this path, things turned out far better than I could have hoped. I bet you probably have some grand plans for your future right now. Let's change gears a bit and talk about your goals. Are you also going to be solving the ultimate question as well? Take a moment to think about your grand plan for the future, your career goals, how you plan to achieve it. And in doing that, think about the job that you'll have in 15 to 20 years from now. What will you be working on? If you ask me, I would say it's very likely that what you're doing in 20 years is not what you're predicting today. If you don't believe me, fear not. As a scientist at heart, I have some preliminary data to back up my hypothesis. I did a survey of people I studied with or worked with in Jamaica, Japan, Spain, South Africa, and the USA. I asked one simple question. Is your current job role and function the same as what you planned when you were an undergraduate student? 114 persons responded, from early career graduates to professionals with decades of experience. Everyone studied and/or is working in a STEM field today. What do you think they said? Is this what you expected? Most people, 64% of them, are not doing what they planned. So 64 of you could potentially end up on a different career path. In fact, based on the comments from the respondents, even the people who said, yes, I am doing what I planned, these folks are mostly doing something close but not quite the same job that they had in mind. Overall, the people who responded to the survey are working in many fields, both research and non-research related. From self-employed mobile app developers to climate scientists at Argonne National Lab. And both researchers and non-researchers alike responded the same way. Most are not doing what they planned. What do you think happened in their journey? Let's take a look at a few of their stories and think about which one of these will be closest to your story in the future. For those in the not what I planned camp, whose career paths have shifted, one said, I wanted to become a structural biologist, and now I'm building a career towards food systems engineering. Another said, I was a philosophy student who wanted to be an author. Now I'm a CS grad student researcher for HPC and data visualization. Could one of these be you in 20 years? One even said, thought I'd be a physicist, ended up being a bargain bin computer scientist. Well, you can never have too many computer scientists in my book. So come on, all you young physicists, come join us. We have cookies. Could this be you? Or maybe you don't have a plan. Maybe you're just like this person who responded by basically saying, just curious. Or maybe you'll be one of the minority who stays on your path and ends up doing what you planned, just like this person who wrote, currently working in aerospace research, which I've always wanted to do. But even when you're in the same field, it's not always as you anticipate. As this person described, was not expecting this much time spent writing proposal. I've heard that this is common for young faculty, One person actually told me that they submitted 10 to 20 proposals in their first 2 years before one finally got accepted. Or maybe you'd be like this person who had, I don't know what you call it, maybe an inverse plan. He said, my father never liked to give advice, but he did tell me not to get a PhD and not to work at the university. I've done both and both worked out well. I found this response very interesting, so I tracked down this person to find out more about their response. This was from Ian Foster. He told me that his father was a scientist in New Zealand and would prefer to hire a person with a bachelor's and experience instead of a PhD student. So his father's advice was coming from an expert position with a viewpoint of the job market and wanted to give his son practical advice. Today, Ian is the director of the Data Science and Learning Division at Argonne National Lab. He's an Argonne Distinguished Fellow and the Arthur Holly Compton Distinguished Service Professor for Computer Science at the University of Chicago. If you've never heard of these titles before, they're essentially indicators that Ian is at the top of his field. When I asked him why he took the route to a PhD and university, he said, and I quote, I've always found myself doing whatever seemed interesting and difficult at the time, rather than following a grand plan. Ian wasn't the only one with such a message. One person didn't say how their career path changed, but they left a message for you all. They said, make a plan, but don't fall in love with your plan. Life is a cynical bastard that likes to throw curveballs. Be flexible and willing to adapt to change. That's the best way to stay afloat in this ever-changing environment. As this last message says, and other respondents have described, no matter which way you take it, no matter which path you're on, life is very unpredictable. For those of you who will end up in the same field, keep in mind that the day-to-day task may not be as you expect, so be agile. For those of you who will end up in a different field, be agile. And for those of you who don't have a plan, yep, also be agile. When it comes to your career, by being agile is how you will find opportunities to prepare for the unexpected. It is how you will get from the here and now to a future you can't predict, to overcoming challenges that are currently unknown. For me, here's the approach I found to becoming more agile. 1. Explore new things in order to reach new places. 2. Express your interest and see where they lead. 3. Take the first step when interesting opportunities come up. And 4. Adapt to the changes that will most certainly happen in life. It was through this agile approach that I was able to shift my own career path from becoming a university faculty to working at Argonne, which I had not planned nor expected until it happened. How I got to Argonne is actually a very interesting story. I went to a conference a few years ago during the final year of my PhD. I thought it was a great opportunity to travel and present my work. They don't tell you this in undergrad, but traveling is one of the highlights of research. To be frank, I wasn't thinking about job hunting or any career-related activities. I just wanted to enjoy what was probably going to be my last fully funded trip before I graduated. The day before my talk, I was sitting in the back of the lecture room, working on my slides and only partially following the presentation I was being given by another student, which was outside of my area of expertise. This was step 1 of the approach, exploring. I was exploring the conference, sitting in on talks that had no relation to my research nor my career. While in the talk, I remember his presentation slides were using a blue background, very neat, great color palette. Let me show you what I mean. Here are the slides. In the moment, I was saying to myself, these slides seem more like a company's promotional material than slides from a grad student trying to graduate. After the session, I was sitting across from the presenter in the lobby. His name was Jose. I leaned towards him and I said, "Hey man, beautiful slides." And that simple sentence, with no ulterior motive, led to me getting this job at Argonne. Because this was step 2 in the approach, expressing my interest. I was interested in his slide designs, an interest that went back to high school when I was learning about typesetting and print design in the yearbook committee. But it wasn't enough to be silently interested in the slide designs. No. I had to express it. After complimenting his slides, Jose and I started chatting about slide designs and hanging out during the rest of the conference. I invited him to watch my presentation the next day to see my slides, which were nowhere as attractive, so I won't assault your eyes with them now. This again was me expressing my interest, my research interest, even though Jose and I are in different areas. We became friends and kept in touch after the conference. This was back in 2018. So, you see, I've covered the first two steps: explore and express your interest. Now, two steps are remaining: take the first step and adapt to change. Jose was a student at the University of Delaware and was also from the city of Medellin in Colombia. A few months after meeting Jose at the conference, I graduated and left Tokyo to travel the world for a year before looking for a job. I wanted a job in academia. One of my trips was to visit another Colombian friend in Medellin, Jose's hometown. When I arrived in Medellin, I messaged Jose. This was the first time we were speaking in 8 months into the conference, so we had to start out with a long, drawn out greeting like you're shouting at someone from across the street. I told him where I was, and you can see he was pleasantly surprised. We continued talking about my travel plans and getting caught up on our lives and adventures. While I was in Colombia, Jose was working as a student at Argonne, and at the end of my trip, he sent me this message. He starts out by inquiring about my trip and then says, "I got this email and thought of you, just in case you're thinking of coming back to the dark side." We call research the dark side. And since I was vacationing, I was away from the dark side for a while. A quick public service announcement. Remember, everyone, we have cookies. Come join us on the dark side. Okay, so what Jose wanted to share with me was a job posting from Argonne. At that point, I was halfway through my year-long vacation and was not ready to start job hunting. Plus, I wanted to work in academia. But I looked at the job posting and realized it was an opportunity, certainly unexpected, but one that I could not pass up. You see, Argonne was one of probably 5 places in the world that was building the next generation of supercomputers, the exascale systems. Let's put this in context. If I went to a university, we could talk about and propose designs for future supercomputers. If I went to Argonne, we would actually be building our designs. So this brought me to step 3: take the first step. I was not mentally prepared for this, and I think even my CV wasn't prepared for this. But I took the first step and applied for the job. To show how out of the job hunting flow I was, after I applied, the hiring manager asked me to add more details to my CV based on the type of job and resubmit. And I did. On a side note, don't use this as an excuse for your resume not to be perfect, okay? Use my experience as a lesson. Okay, I went through with the phone interview, came in for the on site interview, and a few weeks later, I was offered the job. I finished my vacation, and then I started working exactly 1 year and 3 weeks after I graduated. And now comes the final step in the approach: adapting to change. And there were many, many changes. Firstly, it was not a trivial feat going from 1 year of traveling the world to working at a 100% desk job, no matter how much you love the job. I had to placate that restless spirit in my soul. Secondly, I've never worked on a team that is managing a supercomputer before. Up until that point, I was only doing pure research about supercomputers. In pure research, I could propose almost any idea, once it has never been done before, and someone, somewhere, at some time can find it useful. In this job, however, my ideas have to be relevant to the users of our system and be practical now, not 50 years from now, now. So that was a shift in thinking that was required, and I adapted. When I met Jose at the start of my journey to Argonne, I was about to graduate and wanted to spend a year relaxing without thinking about work. His research interest is different from mine, so we didn't bond over shared research interest or anything career wise. We were just two guys who appreciated nice looking presentations, and a chance encounter created an unexpected opportunity. And this encounter only became an opportunity because I explored the conference, expressed my interest in his slides and my research topics, took the first step to apply for a job that I didn't plan for, and adapted to the changes that came along with the new path. This unexpected opportunity, however, wasn't the be all and end all. There was more needed to get this job. While this talk is focused on having an agile approach to life in order to create new opportunities, you need to actually do the work to get the job done, just as though I had to prepare a good resume and do the interviews. Your soft skills, like communication skills and being organized, will play a part in this. But I won't talk more on this topic because there are other presenters at this conference who are way more qualified and way more experienced in these areas. For the sake of this talk, my experience is focused on being agile. Now, I think I've shown you a lot about how I've applied this approach to my life and shared feedback about how others have been affected by life's unpredictability. But all of us have different motivations and different strengths. So I think it's time we consider how you can become more agile in your life. Let's consider exploring. If you desire to discover new things, you must put yourself in new situations. You must be open minded and observe things as they are instead of allowing your assumptions to lead you. The act of exploring can be as simple as watching a new YouTube video by an unfamiliar presenter or sitting in the back of a talk about an unfamiliar topic. It's a low risk activity since you're not exploring to prove anything, only to discover. It's a place where you can be comfortable saying, I don't know. How does this work? Can you tell me more? And find unexpected answers to life's challenges. That's how you become an explorer, by going out to meet the unknown. Let's now consider expressing your interest. This may seem subtle, but this is actually an important step in connecting both with people and with opportunities. Some of us are shy to express ourselves to others for fear that we won't be well received. And sometimes we even try to copy the interest of others in order to seem more interesting to them and to connect with them. To me, this is like putting the cart before the horse, like in this picture. Fortunately, this isn't a picture of a real race. Instead, it's an old Porsche promotion. Think how confident you would feel being the racer in this situation. Have you ever noticed that when we try to manufacture interest, we end up having the same lack of confidence as shown here? Compare that to when you're in a situation that you're genuinely interested in. To me, it's the authenticity that gives us confidence to communicate and connect. And trust me, of the over 7 billion people on this planet, there are a lot of people out there who share the same interest as you do. Therefore, follow your interest instead of asking it to follow you so that you can express it more confidently and form more meaningful connections. Let's now consider taking the first step and adapting to change. I would say the main challenge with both of these points is failure to act. And this likely stems from a fear of failure or finding it difficult to persevere in the face of setbacks. In my life, even though my stories may not have reflected it, I failed a lot more than I've succeeded. That's why I really identify with this quote from Thomas Edison when I think of failure. I have not failed, not once. I have discovered 10,000 ways that don't work. I now consider myself an expert in failing and often say that I'm basically failing upwards in life. We'll discuss these 2 points in a lot more detail during a breakout session later in the conference, so I'll leave the rest of the discussion for that time. So where do you go from here? 15 years from now, you may be the one looking back at how you explored a random presentation in a conference and it led to you getting a job. For some of you, it may have even been an unexpected encounter that led to you being here for this talk. Whenever you feel limited in what you can do or achieve, just remember that there are unseen opportunities around us everywhere, and there's a future with unpredictable potential. While sometimes we must move purposefully and ask for help to find what we need, other times we need to explore with an open mind in order to find those non-traditional paths around barriers. This can substitute for the conventional opportunities that you may not be able to easily access. By actually exploring and being open-minded to new things, we will expand our knowledge and develop new skills. By following our interests, we can make lasting, meaningful connections, paving the way for new opportunities tomorrow, keeping in mind that you don't have to be perfect to make the first move when new opportunities come. Of course, do your best to improve your technical skills and your soft skills. If you want to become a programmer, study the languages and practice. If you want to become a chemist, work hard to become an expert in your specialization. But don't hesitate to apply for the graduate program or the job even if you don't feel like you have the best career accomplishments. Life will take us to unpredictable places and we must remain agile. So remember this: explore, be curious, and have an open mind to new experiences. They're the invisible appointments on your schedule. Express, make your interests, desires, and even limitations known. This is your calling card. This is how opportunities find you. Take the first step. Try for those interesting opportunities, even if you don't feel perfectly prepared. Sometimes you literally can't know until you try. Adapt. Accept that life can be unpredictable and setbacks happen. Like water, move with purpose and change to conquer new challenges. So I'll end by saying, go forth and start exploring.